a new program and service for us, and we're very excited to be sharing it with you. I want to tell you a couple of things about some other library activities. If you have followed our Sunday with Friends programs, you would know that this last one will be our very last one until next fall and next spring. And the speaker will be the author of the wettest county in the world, which is Franklin County, Virginia. And his book was used as a basis for the movie The Lawless that was out recently. His name is Matt Bonderock. Okay, I'm sorry. But he's a very engaging speaker, and the program will be here at 3 o'clock on Sunday. And then we also have the good fortune to have two very well-known, well-respected authors that will be doing a program for our Friends of the Library on May the 18th. I'm terrible at this. I usually write this stuff down. But this program, they're two, it's Barbara Kingsolver and Ann Patchett, and they will be doing a presentation, doing some interaction, talking about their work. The program is going to be at the Martha Washington, and the tickets are $50, and they're very limited because of the size of the Martha Washington. We don't have a lot of tickets to sell, so I encourage you to purchase your tickets early. And part of that money will be going back to support the Friends of the Library. There will be books available to buy by both of those authors, and they will be willing to sign books. I can't resist the urge to ask how many of you all have library cards? Yay! Okay. If you don't, we can take care of that right here. And you will need a library card to take advantage of some of these wonderful books that we have here. And I'm going to give a little spiel about why this library is involved in this seed project. We first heard about a seed library from a library out in California. We didn't have the money to start such a thing, but we thought it was a really neat idea, especially since there was getting to be so much interest in farming, Appalachian sustainable development becoming more involved and more of a presence in our community. And we had the good fortune to have the Raymond Grace Foundation just volunteered to give us the funding to purchase the seeds. And we were glad to start this service because I told the staff this morning it was one of the few things we could add at our library that didn't take a lot of space. We don't have much room here. And we want to do this because as a library, as a public library, we take it very seriously that our job is to educate people, to enrich their lives, and to also provide a form of entertainment. And we think that this seed library gives you an opportunity to do all of those things. Through our speakers today and the resources that we have and the classes that will be offered, we'll certainly be able to tell you a lot about gardening and to educate you about why some different approaches to gardening are very important to consider. And then we also hope through your participation in programs like we have today, classes that Heather will be teaching, that you'll get a chance to interact, get to know other people that share your interest, and all of those things just go together to make us a better community. So with that, I'm going to turn the program over to Heather Jeffers, who works for the Appalachian Sustainable Development, and Ben Castile, who has his own business called Appalachian Wildside, and they are truly our experts in this area. Go for it.
Thank you all for coming out. It's a beautiful day to be here. I'm sorry we're inside and not outside, but just want to let you all know I'm Ben Castile, and I'm a co-owner of Appalachian Wildside. We are a small landscaping and farming business here in Southwest Virginia. We're based out of Meadowview, and we do edible landscaping and native plant landscaping, as well as do a lot of organic farming. We're not certified yet, but we do grow all organic methods, and we sell at the Abilene Farmers Market. We'll be selling at the Bristol Farmers Market this year, and we also will be doing CSA shares, community supported agriculture. And we're really happy to be involved in this project because we want to see more people saving seed and in particular our Appalachian heirlooms. We do a little bit of seed growing ourselves and work with Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, which is based in Mineral, Virginia, and that's where a lot of these seeds came from. They're a great kind of cooperative group that has just a few growers, and they're looking for more growers all the time. So maybe if any of you are interested, maybe you might want to in the future become a seed grower, and hopefully you'll be saving seed for the library this year. And this is Heather.
I work for, as you're saying, I work for Appalachian Sustainable Development, and my main project is we're working with 30 home gardeners to get them equipped to be
You
the.
want to use the microphone? Is there a microphone working right now?
I don't know if we have them.
We don't have a microphone.
Can you come a little closer, maybe?
Sure.
We can speak louder though.
Yeah, we can talk louder. But I'm doing a project with 30 home gardeners, and we're basically just trying to equip people to be the strongest gardeners they can be, and part of that is seed saving. So I'm just happy to be here, and I'm happy to share knowledge and gain more knowledge. Start our presentation. Yeah.
So you want to save seed. How many of you are interested in saving seed or have saved seed before? Actually, how many of you have saved seed before? How many of you are interested in saving seed for the library? Great. Well, we're going to try to tell you about how to save seed, and in particular how to save seed and work with the seed saving library here.
And it's what a seed saving library is, and just why we're doing it, why we think it's important.
So what is a seed library?
And as we've been saying, there'll be seed available for checkout, and there'll also be gardening classes to go along with it, because there may be a new vegetable you really like to try, but you're not really sure about its cultivation and how to go about it. So stay tuned. There'll be a lot of classes. And we want to create a community of gardeners is really one of the reasons we're doing this, and to have a living library. Just more foods, more gardens, and preserving our agricultural heritage, because the library is all about saving stories and collecting history, and seeds are their own stories, so we want to just bring that component in. And before we get more into the seed library, I want to do some terminology about seeds, so you kind of have a general picture of where we're going.
First of all, we have a hybrid and open pollinated seed. Does anyone know what the difference is between those two? She does. Well, for those of you who don't, a hybrid seed is typically a first generation cross, and that's labeled F1, between two different species or two different varieties of the same species of plant. Hybrids do not always produce seed that is true to type, and in fact, usually they do not. Hybrids are not necessarily genetically modified, though. A lot of people get that confused, that genetically modified plants are automatically hybrids, but that's not necessarily true. Mendel was basically creating hybrids when he crossed two peas together.
Yeah, hybridization is going on in nature all the time. Plants are crossing, genes are being exchanged, and it's something you can experiment with in your own garden. It'll just take a while to stabilize, but these pictures are an example of a home gardener documenting her pea crosses, and she chose two very different varieties, crossed them, and then the first year the seeds looked a little bit different, and she replanted, and the next year she had 9 and more vastly different kinds of seeds. You can see some of how they're changing, and she's just going to continue to follow those varieties out and see where they lead, because they're all going to take on different traits. But what we're trying to do with seed savers is not have hybridization happen if there's a certain gene set that we're trying to preserve. That leads us to our open pollinated. It's a variety that will cross-pollinate, but if you did keep it isolated, it would stay the same. Like it has a set, like this type of plant that it is. And it's a stabilized variety, it's bred over time, and you change it to your own site through selection and personalization. And slowly it's going to adapt to your own soil.
An F1 hybrid means first filial generation, so it's the first generation after a cross. An open pollinated variety, on the other hand, could be like F120.
Yes.
In the case of these heirloom varieties, they've been saved for, sometimes over 100 years, sometimes hundreds of years. So they're just a hybrid that has been carried out long enough to be a stable variety. The next kind of big difference, heirloom and heritage. I'm sure you've probably all heard about heirloom vegetables these days. It seems to be kind of a popular topic. It is with us. We're really interested in the heirlooms that have been passed down from generation to generation, particularly here in Appalachia. An heirloom just means something that is passed down. There are some people will give rough guidelines, like at least 40 years it's been passed down. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it is an heirloom. Heritage seed, on the other hand, is something that was once commercially available on the market and may no longer be commercially available. So a lot of times heritage can be heirloom. So they're kind of two very vague terms that are different but very similar at the same time.
And people have a lot of value judgments with them, and we just want to say, like, it doesn't mean if something's not an heirloom that it's bad or anything like that. It's just that the 40s rule is basically that was when a lot of modern plant breeding and a lot of hybridization happened. So people decided to say a true heirloom happened before then, but there's plenty of other heirloom strains that are continuing after. Not everything has been subject to those breedings. And then just another reason we wanted to point out what's really exciting about having a seed library in this region is that there's so many heirlooms and like heirlooms specific to the region. Like SARE, the Sustainable Agriculture and Research and Education, put out a study on our Appalachian food shed, and we have more biodiversity than all the rest of the U.S. and northern Mexico and Canada combined. So there's so many stories here and so many plants.
In fact, that picture right there is Bloody Butcher corn, which we just donated a bag of Bloody Butcher that we saved from last year. There's a story associated with Bloody Butcher that a girl in a family of pioneers was kidnapped by Native Americans, and she escaped, but she took their corn with them, and it was the Bloody Butcher corn, and eventually it was passed down in that family from generation to generation, and it's become a really beautiful corn, and it's very useful. It's really good for grits and hominy. So it's those kinds of stories that really make the Appalachian food shed not only the most diverse, but I think the most interesting as well.
And back to kind of, there's so many seeds out there, but this is an example of how the library is going to be categorized. We'll sort things into ornamentals, herbs, and vegetables. And then those categories will be labeled. There's going to be a big old-fashioned card catalog where the seed will be organized. And then the labels will also be, the types will be organized into super easy, easy, and advanced, and we'll get into what that means. Oh wait, can you back that slide actually? And that's one thing we just wanted to stress was, the one, yeah. Yeah, it's like we say ornamental, and that's a term really going to be our catch-all for all of our big flowers and a lot of Virginia natives. But we just want to stress, if it's not edible for you, it doesn't mean it's not edible for someone else. Like there's a reason in our ecosystem, and that's something we look forward to exploring too, is why do we plant some of these ornamentals besides beauty? And then that's an ornamental gourd that someone made to a water bottle. So there's also some cool historical uses for these ornamental crops that we're excited to explore too. And this is super easy. These are plants that don't need as much genetic diversity, not as big of an amount of plants to pool seed together. And we'll talk more about the amount of plants on that too. And part of it, what makes a plant easy, has to do with its flower shape. There's some plants they pollinate before they open. Some have evolved where the pollen receptacle is more inside, so it's harder for an insect to get to. So these are encouraged for first-time gardeners to save. And we do want to stress there are some requirements such as fermentation. Here's some pictures there of squeezing out your tomato seeds into a jar and leaving them sit to ferment. And some of your super easy guys include lettuce, beans, peas, and tomatoes.
Then we have easy. They're a little bit more difficult, but they're still easy. Anyone can save easy seeds. They require a little bit more space than most of the super easy plants to save. But yeah, some of them take a lot more time, like carrots and onions. They're both biennials. So in order to save seed from carrots or onions, you need to, at the end of the season, actually dig up the plant, or in the carrot case, you leave them in the ground.
Yeah, it depends on your area. Sometimes you can leave them to overwinter in the ground. Sometimes it'd be best to dig up and store. Select from the most beautiful and healthiest carrots, then replant those and allow to flower. So there's different process.
So sometimes it takes 2 years to save seeds. So in the case of the biennial seeds that we'll have to give out, might be a little bit more difficult to say, well, hey, don't bring them back this year, wait another year.
And then difficult. These have, flowers that easily cross-pollinate, and they're really easy to mix with other species. Because cucurbits, the squash family, those are primarily insect pollinated, and it requires a lot of, you need space and time to save seeds. Like, what's the gardener next to you doing? Like, all of these things are affected by insects and wind and weather as far as where the pollen is going to go. And so we're trying to get to know the natural processes and see how we can get them to work in our favor or interrupt them. Like, in this case, you would be the pollinator instead of letting the insects do the work. You would need to either make sure no one within 3 miles from you is growing squash, which is intensely difficult in a small town where we're gardening close together, or you would select a certain number of plants where you would tape the female blossoms shut, and then early in the morning before the bees are active, you would untape, pollinate with a little paintbrush, and then retape. So there is purity techniques that we'll get into. It's just we want to raise awareness that saving seeds does not mean just taking the seeds from your plant and turning it back in. There are steps that need to be taken for purity.
We don't want to discourage anyone from trying to save seed from the advanced or difficult class, but we do want to encourage you to come and take some classes from us first, especially if you're going to be trying to bring them back to the library, because we want to make sure that you know the skills in order to have pure seed that we can give out next year. Squash is one of the more difficult things. Corn is also difficult because you have to have at least 200 plants to maintain genetic purity, and it's wind pollinated, so you have to either isolate it by a mile or more, or hand pollinate it. So.
And that would be like, again, putting some like paper bags, and a lot of these companies, they sell all those things too, like cages for the plants and things like that. So there's ways to do it, as the gardener gets more involved with their crops.
And we'll be hosting classes later on in the summer and actually showing you how to do the hand pollination of squash and corn and melons and such.
And we kind of talked about this, but it's isolation, space, and time. And this is really important about garden design, because you could plant 2 varieties of corn right next to each other if you timed it that while one was tasseling, the other had not come to that stage yet, so that when one was finished doing its pollen thing and its male and female parts were no more, and it was forming the fruit. How would you say that? And
On the, for instance, on the Bloody Butcher that we saved last year, we didn't want to just grow Bloody Butcher because we like to eat sweet corn. So we actually grew 3 different varieties of hybrid sweet corn next to our Bloody Butcher, but had it on totally different sides of the field, and we planted our sweet corn really early and our Bloody Butcher late. Bloody Butcher takes about 110 days to mature, whereas most sweet corns, we were going for the really early sweet corns, 60 to 70 days. So that way we had ample space in there, And you can even go ahead and plan on trying to do that. And then if you get to the period where it looks like your sweet corn is tasseling at the same time as your field corn, then you might have to just hand pollinate them, which is a little bit extra work, but you can still get good seed out of it. So.
And succession planting is an amazing thing. It's really great to just have the two type corns right next to each other, and then also when you're finished harvesting one, then the other one is soon ready after that. So you also space your eating of the crops too, which is great. So a lot of it is just paying attention to how long crops take to get to maturity. And then it's a lot of also just knowing the parts of the plant. Like there is a difference in a male flower and a female, and it can be, for some people it may be simple to identify which one, but it's just important that every plant has a different flower structure or just a different anatomy. And then this is just an example of someone putting a cage around a pepper plant, and that would just be a way to prevent insects from going in. But then it's important to remember, if you want to do all the things of isolation, then yes, you become the pollinator, else you get no fruit. So that's important to remember, or way reduced. And proper storage of seeds is super important, and that's what we'll be covering after classes too. Why? Why this thing?
Well, there are many reasons why we save seeds. I guess probably the most important reason is that so we can have seed for next year. But there are other things too. I mean, just to really get in tune with the whole cycle of the plant. I mean, how many of you all have just planted lettuce and eaten it, and then as soon as it starts to bolt, you pull it up? That's typically what I did for many years. But now I'll pull them all up except for 5 or 6. In the case of lettuce, it's good to have 20 plants. Save maybe 10 or 20 plants, let them go to seed, and then get your seed for next year. So it's kind of changing the way you garden a little bit and adding a challenge to it.
And also, like saving seeds is also, you learn more about yourself. It's a lot of delayed gratification, especially when you're a seed grower, because you don't get your check until the winter, and you have to have the crop go through its full life cycle. But it's kind of cool to, it's a lot of patience and a lot you learn about yourself. You can earn money and also save money, and you're just increasing your own resilience, because we don't know what will happen if seed companies are no longer. So it's kind of just good to gain another skill that you can keep your gardening knowledge going on, and in case something happened and you weren't able to get seeds again. It also really connects you, I think, to your family and also the world around you, even beyond just the plant anatomy and taking a closer look at plants. For example, we'll be growing a lot of peppers from around the world, because my friend joined some kind of hot pepper of the month club or something, where he just gets all these random seeds, and it's exciting, and he's learning stories from gardeners around the world. And these are just some close looks at some of my favorite plants. That's glass gem corn we'll be growing. It's a special variety from Native Seed Search, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Like each kernel is different, so I'm excited to take a closer look. That's scabiosa, that's marigold, and the seeds are fun. They're all different looking. It's fun.
Well, I have one comment. I mean, to me, one of the most important things is pretty soon we're not going to be able to save our own seeds. I mean, how many, like India now, the rice is being taken from the people who have traditionally saved seeds. And it's a radical act to save seeds, truly.
It really is. I think the most important thing for me is creating community food security, and sovereignty as well.
Right.
Not just security, but becoming separate from the system that has come in place. I guess we all know about Monsanto and the big biotech companies who own, what is it, like 96% of the seed companies. So it can be kind of depressing to think about that. So we tend to focus on the brighter side of, we can grow our own seed and save it in our community. And we hope that this seed saving library will actually evolve to kind of become a reflection of what we are growing in the community, and what people are saving and what people are interested in, and hopefully preserving those thousands of Appalachian heirlooms that are out there and are actually in danger of being lost.
Yeah, we're wanting this to be really like a community seed bank reflecting like the needs and desires of the community and just learning together.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
this question time? Is
You
it
can ask a question whenever you want.
concerning that red corn, is it at all edible as a corn on the cob?
Yeah, you can eat it
At
as a sweet
At a
corn.
certain young age?
Yeah, it's not quite as sweet. All the hybrid sweet corns have a sugary gene in them that make them super sweet, and most of the old heirloom sweet corns lack that gene. But you can still eat them, and they don't have like the super sweet corn taste that a lot of people are used to from the market. But they're still pretty good to eat. I mean, I like to eat.
It can be tender. I mean, it looks as if it were ready for horses.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to get it even before it turns red. It's still in the milk stage, and it looks kind of white, kind of reddish.
So when we walk past all those really tempting 10 cents a pack seeds
Uh-huh.
for a good meal, we should think about this, right?
Right. Yeah. Give it a thought. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing to buy those seeds and plant them. I mean, gardening is a great thing, no matter what you're growing. But it's maybe just something to think about. And fortunately, now we have this resource here to where you can get some seed from the library. So eventually, we'll have a lot more seed with help from gardeners like you all.
And may I ask one more question? Well, maybe I'll ask another one later. Could you take a little tangent moment on GMO to just let us know why it's not good or if it's not good?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
What are they doing that
basically,
is different from what Mendel did?
right. A GMO is basically a genetically modified organism. Is there a slide on that?
I don't think we get into it. It's just the difference is what the hybridization, it is something that can be done in a lab, but hybridization also happens naturally. But this is something that I don't want to say it's bad. It's just not something that physically, like, it would never happen without human intervention. Because you're literally taking genes and, like, splicing them into, like, a different species. Because yeah, okay, well, sure, you can say it's bad.
say it's bad, yeah.
But, like, I mean, but we're not here to moralize on that, but I just would.
Well, I think that the big thing with genetic modification is that you're taking genes from another plant or, in some cases, another organism.
Yeah, you're crossing organism boundaries that don't cross in nature.
And I think that genetic modification does have the potential to feed the world, but not in the mode that they're using it now. The way that they use genetic modification now is just to make more money and to own more seeds. Now that they have the ability to patent a gene itself, then, I mean, that
Okay,
means...
yeah, that is bad, because since it is something that can't happen without human, because I can't patent, like, the way I save lettuce seed or make it. Like, these are all things that we're talking about anyone can do. But then once you get something that someone's trained and goes to graduate school in to insert a gene, and then they're allowed to say that's a skill that, so I guess I really don't have anything else to say on that tangent. I don't know what else that makes.
I think that if they were inserting genes, like, say in the instance of like sweet corn, maybe you could put the super sweet corn gene in any other corn. That would be great. Or make a drought tolerant corn. That would be awesome. But that's not what they're doing. They're trying to make things herbicide tolerant and
more combined with other industries on how they can make money together, and that's kind of what makes us wary of them. But yeah, I'm really not qualified to say what is going on in the lab at all. I'm in no way a geneticist.
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
At what point do you know when to start saving the seeds?
Well, I guess we'll get more into that.
Yeah, your plant wants to go to seed. Like, it's gonna happen, and it mostly happens when we don't want it to happen.
Yeah, I guess the whole idea of bolting, when lettuce starts to flower, that's maybe when you step back, instead of pulling out the lettuce plants, just step back and let it go to seed. A lot of plants will go ahead and go to seed on their own without your assistance. Some plants might need some help, like beets and onions, like we said. You kind of need to dig those up in the winter so they don't rot on the ground, and then put them somewhere like in a root cellar, and then plant them again in the next spring so they'll go to seed. So some things, it's a little bit difficult, but for most things, the plant is trying to go to seed. That's its goal in life.
I'm sure research has been done on this, but what percentage of the seeds germinate?
Actually,
It's different for every crop.
it's different for everything, and we strive to get to the 90% and above, and that's usually what you see on seed packets. Each seed packet is required to list what the germination percent is on it, and to do that, they just pretty much run a test. They'll take a sample of the seeds and just broadcast them and just see what germinates. Either do it like in a paper towel or in a spot of soil, count all the seeds that they broadcast.
It's really disappointing when you plant a bunch of seeds, maybe get one.
Yeah.
It really is.
So part of the classes too would be before you return your seed, we would do a germ test and see what the germination rate is. And that's true too for seed savers, professional seed savers. They don't get paid until they pass their germ test. So that would be something we go over too, because that would be incredibly unsatisfying. And then for some plants though, I wouldn't necessarily say it's even human error. Like spinach just has a very low germination rate. And there's some plants that I don't know what it is, just biology. Maybe they're being selected. They're just the weak links in the chain and don't have pack much power.
So how do we save seeds?
Yeah. A little garden organization and writing things down. And as we were talking about, a lot of it is isolation distance. It's really going to come to that. And all the packets that you'll check out will have the spacing on there of how many feet you need to isolate the crop from. It's like if you want to plant 5 different kinds of lettuce, then if you wanted to save seed from all of them, then you're going to need to space them apart. Or you can plant them all close together, but only let one variety come to flower. So it just requires paying attention. And then that's a basil. How many times have you see that happen in the field because your basil is always trying to go to seed, you're constantly pinching off the head. So a lot of it's just not doing anything. And then this is an example when we want to save from something. You don't want to pick from the plant you're going to save from. You want all energy to be going into the seed. So that's just a mistake someone put in to be like, this is one of the ones we're saving. So you just put an S on it, and then it just reminds you which plants to pick from and which ones not. And that's another how the seed packets would be. Be common name and scientific genus, and then species, which variety it is, and then once we start getting seed returned, you'll be famous too, and your name will be on the harvester. And there's the location and the year, and then notes on the difficulty and things like that. So the library will be well organized to equip you with proper spacing. And then it's just important to remember to plant a little extra, because as they were saying, it's a general rule that you need to have at least 20 plants for the crop to have enough wide a range of genes. It's kind of just like monarchs, king and queen, they just can't keep having babies, like it's going to eventually run down and the breed's going to fail. So it's the same sort of thing. You don't want to just be like, okay, this is my one plant, I always save seed from it and replant. It's just not, you're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket. So it's better to have a wider range, but we know that a family doesn't need 25 squash plants. So we're trying to figure out more how to, if everyone saves seed from 3 plants, then we can pool it together into be our stock. But so it's just important, if you know that you want to have 10 lettuce plants to eat, then you should plant 13. So then you have some that you're going to let go to seed.
I was just thinking that, does anyone know or care to know what the importance of the scientific name? Or does anyone really?
Understand everything about the plant.
Yeah, it's
People call the different plants the same thing.
it's kind of it's a difficult thing to grasp sometimes. Like you see the scientific name on a packet and you're like, what is this Latin? You know, no one speaks Latin anymore. Why am I reading this? But I think, you know, one of the big things, you know, and you're both right. I mean, Latin will a lot of times describe the plant. You know, it'll use Latin words to describe what the plant is, and to distinguish species. Solanum lycopersicum is the tomato, but there are also other species of tomatoes that, like a Solanum Berlandier is another species that's from South America. So a lot of times, you know, that can also tell you where the tomato might be from, you know, what it could be good for.
And also who it's related to, because then you can know, like squash, for example, there's many species within that genus and that family, so you could plant several different kinds of the different varieties close together and they will not cross. So this gives you, it's good for crop rotation when you're trying to rotate between plant families, so you're always, you're not going to resist disease buildup in the soil, but it also tells you, like, you know, plants, some plants will cross and some won't. And it's really important to know, because you might have one giant family, the Solanaceae family, but as Ben was saying, there's many different in there, and that helps you plan your garden too, of which ones will cross.
And I think with flowers particularly is important because people have all these regional names for, like if I say Dizzy, what is
Right.
that, you know, and it's really important to have the right nomenclature.
Absolutely, that's the other, you know, most important thing probably is that, you know, it's hard to you know, remember all the common names of it, and there are so many. I mean, there can be hundreds of common names for, you know, one species of plant. So if we use the scientific name, then we know exactly what it is. So.
A lot of plants are related that you wouldn't think are. Like lettuce is in the sunflower family, so that's important to know. There could be some things going on there, diseases if you're trying to do a rotation. And then it's just interesting to know that how the winter squash, yeah, you could plant several different kinds close together because there's like the acorn group, the spaghetti group, and they're all different and they will not cross.
Yeah, part of our seed saving strategy is to try to save seeds from as many different species of each genus, which sometimes they will cross. There is a little bit of overlap, and that can get really difficult. There are some great books over here that will help you with that. In particular, Susanna Ashworth's Seed to Seed gives most of the details, and she's not 100% correct all the time, but sometimes, you know, we just have to figure out things for ourselves. So.
Yeah, but it's just cool to see the genus, family, species, variety, and learn all the different relations. So it helps a lot.
We grow cucurbit, the squash family. You know, there's summer squash family. You know, Cucurbita pipo, Cucurbita maxima is like the pumpkins, and then there are a few other species, the Argyrosperma, which is not often commonly grown around here, and some of them have, you know, more resistance to insects like squash borers, like the Argyrosperma genus or species is a lot more resistant to squash vine borers than the other species are. So we can try to save, you know, seed from one of each of those species, and you can have them, you know, more or less next to each other in the same field without having to isolate one. Yes, Jean?
So which of these two, Solanum, lycopersicum, or whatever, which is the species and which is the genus? Is the genus the Solanum?
Yeah, the genus is Solanum and the species is Lycopersicum. And a lot of times they'll follow that with a single quotation mark with the cultivated variety name after it. So if you wanted to get a packet of...
XX, I think sometimes it says too.
Yeah, if it's a hybrid, it'll have an X. So it'll be like Solanum X, yeah. Which two are crossed with each other to get that hybrid. So. Moving on. Some important things to remember.
Save seed from healthy plants. if your plant is keeling over, it's best to just let it get out of the gene pool.
You can rule it out.
And and just as we were saying, it saves seed from at least 20 different plants to avoid running down the breed. And what your neighbors are growing can have an effect. So if anything, this project's going to bring us a lot closer together because we have to know who else is gardening and talk to them about it. And then we want your ideas on how we can better ensure purity because we were thinking too how to package the seeds so that people get enough to have a good amount for their garden, but also, you know, maybe there's one person who is prepared. I have enough space. I really want to be the corn seed steward for the library, and we just want to figure this out. Maybe there'll be different levels of involvement of what people want to do, and maybe there's a better way to divide and package the seed. And we're just open to suggestions because this is supposed to be a community seed project. But right now, what we were thinking was the idea of everyone saving seed from several plants in their garden, and the people that took those same varieties and will bring it together. So we do have at least 20 plants saved, but as you can probably tell, there's so many variables in there. The people might go to the seed saving classes and get the training on the proper spacing and be totally devoted to hand pollination, but anything could happen. So there's a lot of variables. And we can come back to this if no one has any ideas yet, but just know that this is what we're noodling on.
And we're thinking about it.
Thinking hard.
So let's see. Let's get started. We will be able to check out some seeds today if people are interested in checking out some seeds. We have registration forms back here, and we will ask that everyone tries to at least save one of the varieties that they check out, and also commits to taking at least one class. And if you're going to try to take, say, a squash seed and try to save seed from it, we would like to ask you to please come to the hand pollination class when we get there. We're working out the class schedule right now. But we're definitely going to have an easy class, or a super easy class.
Super easy, and advanced. And you'll notice when you came in on the check-in form, that was how the seeds were categorized. So it's if you're like, I just want to save bean seeds, then just be sure to come to the super easy class and get equipped for that. And then we're asking on the registration forms, when you do check out your seed, you'll be signing a form that says you're picking which one you want to agree to and that you're agreeing to come to one of those specific seed-saving classes. And there are other classes that we would totally love you to take and would equip you more. Our next class coming up will be basic botany, or botany for gardeners, because there's, botany can go a lot of directions. There's some great botany that can help a gardener be really strong. And that class will be May 7th at 7 p.m. here. And then the seed saving classes are specific to getting prepared for your super easy, and advanced will be at the Ecumenical Faith and Action Garden, and we'll talk more about that at future classes. But those will be some outside, hands-on classes.
To do some hand pollination of your own.
And then we want to, today it's about checking out some seeds, starting, get growing, and come talk to us, give us your ideas. And if you're interested in being a seed steward, if you've had success growing out varieties in the past and you'd like to help us build our stock so we have even more seed available to distribute, please talk to us. And that's just another thing we want to talk about too, is that these are stories. If you want to know what's going on in your garden, take a picture of the plant you're saving seeds from, tell us how it's going, what you're learning. It's kind of like you want to highlight what's in our collection. This is our collection, this is a living library, and we want you to be a part of it. And then just if you are interested in buying more seeds too, and we just want to remind everyone that you can buy plants and seeds with your EBT and SNAP. Just make sure to tell other people. And basically where we're going with that. Those are corn transplants. We have really good luck in our garden growing corn from transplant. So we just want to get everybody talking about how they like to garden and what they like to do.
Which varieties you like to grow.
Yeah.
What seed you would like to save, and
how to taste and
recipes.
You're leaving out fruit trees, I noticed.
Yeah, that's something that we think we might be able to get into in the future. Right now, we don't have the space for it. But eventually, we do want to catalog all the heirloom apples. It actually is one of the biggest things in Appalachia. And the guide that Heather was referring to earlier.
There were so many apple varieties that were once commercially available and some not.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I think it was something like 400
Yeah, it was insane.
varieties that were once commercially available in Appalachia and that are no longer commercially available. And some of these are in danger, but that is something that we would like to move into in the future. And it's also something that you can actually, save in a relatively small area. You just need the trees. But you can have hundreds of apple varieties on one tree, just grafted onto each
So yeah,
branch.
and that'll be another series of classes on grafting and tree disease and orchard care, which sounds amazing. We want to do it all, but the library is going to take the shape of how involved people are, today and onwards. Like our stock will just disappear if we don't get any feedback, and we're starting somewhere, and it's going to go where the community takes it. And another reason we're starting with vegetables too is also health. Like we really just want to get more people eating healthy and being more aware of their diets and just the whole food system in general. And I mean, fruit trees, that's totally healthy too, but we're just starting somewhere.
If you have seeds or stories or any heirlooms, please bring them in and share them with us. We'd like to share the stories and kind of get a database of all the Appalachian stories and, stories from around the world as well.
Yeah, we're definitely not, we're not specific to Appalachian only seeds or anything like that. We want to bring in all kinds of perspectives on seed saving. And then one thing other about the forum, when you'll be checking out your seeds, it'll also say that you're acknowledging, we'll be sending you like a record sheet of just writing down how much you planted and then when you harvest it.
I did want to say too, in reference to your question, one of the reasons that we can't do fruit tree seeds right now is because almost all fruit trees are insect pollinated, and therefore they often do not breed true type. There are some varieties that do self-pollinate and do breed true type seeds. So maybe in the future, if we can get a hold of some of those seeds, we might make those available.
Okay, I have some of the pawpaw. It's a single tree, no pawpaws anywhere near.
Oh,
It's
great.
across town.
Nice.
Yeah, we're doing a lot more stuff with pawpaws. Yeah, that's exciting. Ben has some in the greenhouse right now. We don't know what's going to happen with them.
Well,
We're
it
excited.
takes 10 years before it gets fruit.
Uh-huh.
So you just have to want to wait.
Now's the time.
Yeah.
There's no time like today.
Oh, and these are just, seed to seed is seriously just the best, and love it so much, and it really just outlines it in easy to understand language, and she has this great introduction to flower structure and just what's going on in general, pollination, and what that even means.
And that's this book.
Yeah. And she has all the categories of the plant, so you remember things like, like sweet potatoes, the other commonly grown plant is water spinach, so that's the only other thing you need to look out for, so it's land moringblood, so it's helpful to know all these weird connections, it's kind of like a who's who of the plant world, so I really recommend the book.
And some of the best sources are in our community, so you all are probably sources for each other, and the seed stewards that hopefully we will be identifying soon, and hopefully some of you might be some of these seed stewards, and we can connect together. And those are sometimes the best sources are the local growers. But the library is one of the best sources, of course. Will has put together a wonderful bibliography of some of these books. Are in that bibliography, so be sure to come to the library, check the web, and talk to each other about saving seed.
And check out some blogs too, like the High Mowing, that's a seed company that sells organic seeds, and they have a great blog with just a refresher on the difference of hybrids and genetic modification. And I really like getting the different perspectives on GMOs and from all different sources, and so that's helpful.
Ready? mention, if you didn't register ahead of time, like at the Earth Day event, if you will fill out one of these forms, it's going to give you give us the basic information we need to stay in touch and keep some records. And then when you go to get your seeds, we'll ask that you will write down the type of seeds that you selected. And then, as they mentioned, there will be another form to let us know which one of the seeds that you want to save. And if you are not sure which seeds that you want to save, we tried to get some information together on just the seeds that we have. And those notebooks that are there on the end of the table, Heather, those are ones that have basic information about each one of the types of seeds that we have. We're going to be putting that on our website, and then also if you go to our website and look at the Pinterest link, there's information, a picture of the plant, and then some information, not as detailed as what we have right there. And if you want to take a little bit of time and decide, maybe you don't know today which seeds that you want, when you come back on Tuesday, then you can check out seeds on Tuesday. And we're doing this just like we're getting ahead. One day we're getting a program together, and then the next day we're planning on the next step. But we will be posting some information and have regular times that you can come to the library and check out these seeds. But we know that we'll do it next Tuesday, and then maybe by next Tuesday we can tell you when the other ones will be. And if you didn't pick up these things when you came in, this is a list of the classes that Heather is teaching. And they all would be related to the topic here today, and they're things that they're at the Faith in Action Garden, but they're open for anyone to attend. And then this is just kind of like a cheat sheet of the seeds that we have divided into easy, more difficult type things. So that could be a starter if you wanted to take this and then look through the Pinterest side or the website or the notebook. If you want to check out the books and you don't have a library card, or if you want to take them back in, anyway, somebody will help you with that part.
And a class list on the specific seed saving classes will be coming soon. And our next one is the May 7th at 7, the basic botany, and then from there we'll tell you when the next seed class is going to be. Just keep going forward.
And we will really take advantage of your email address if you provide that. We're not going to share it with other people, but we will be posting information out on the list from the listserv. And then we hope to get more and more publicity out in the local papers about all this. Thank you all.
Thank you all for coming out.
And the seats are out there, so you all can just go up and take your seats if you're ready. And I'll be able to